Okay, I think we'll get started. Thank you all for coming to this year's Candidates Forum for Local Elected Positions, sponsored by the Hingham Republican Town Committee. My name is Jerry Seelan. I'll be leading the discussion this afternoon. The purpose of this event is to give the candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves and their plans if elected, and to give voters an opportunity to ask questions about issues of concern or interest to them. While organized by the Republican Town Committee, this is a nonpartisan event, and we welcome the participation of all Hingham's candidates and citizens. We want to try to keep things moving along because the library does want to get us out of here around 4:30. So I'll explain the format. While there are no contested races this year, sadly, we invited all candidates for office to this event. Several were unable to attend, and we would like to especially thank those who did take the time to join us today, including Michael Puzo for Town Moderator, Carol Falvey for Town Clerk, Tim Dempsey and Carrie Nee, did I get that right? Thank you. Running for School Committee, Stephen Melia for Recreation Committee, Clark Frazier for Sewer Commission, and Laura Burns for Light Plant. If it is true that 90% of success in life is just showing up, then I think your chances of getting elected are pretty good. Our process for this forum will be the same as in previous years. Candidates will be sitting here at the front, and we'll start with this lovely group here. And then because there are no contested races, obviously we have fewer speakers, but each candidate will come to the lectern, make a 2-minute opening statement. After each candidate has made his or her statement, I'll ask the audience for questions. Candidates will have a minute to respond to each question. And as you may recall from previous years, I have a list of questions myself, just in case the audience is shy about asking them. The school committee candidates will be the final speakers, and once the first group is done, school committee will come up and finish up. Laura Marwell in the front row will be keeping time. Will flash a signal when the 2 minutes is up. She also has a sound signal. Demonstrate.
I'm not sure which it is. Let's find out.
Very good. That's just a friendly reminder if you're getting too close to the end of your 2 minutes or 1 minute.
Oh, hang on. I'm gonna step up for a second.
Technical difficulties.
Good thing we tried it.
For members of the audience asking questions, please raise your hand. Wait for Barbara to come around with the microphone, speak into the microphone, and please identify yourself, name and address with your question, if you don't mind. This is not a debate format, so people will, if you don't mind, just be polite to the candidates, no interruptions, and we trust that civility will be maintained throughout the event, as is usually the case in Hingham. So with that, let's get started. Michael Puzo is running for re-election as town moderator. This is a 1-year term. The race is uncontested. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jerry, and thanks to the committee again for hosting this day. It's important that we have the opportunity to visit and see and be seen. I am Michael Puzo. I was first elected town moderator in 2012. It's been a privilege to serve in that capacity since then. The most visible thing the moderator does is to preside at town meeting. I do believe more firmly than I did when I was first elected that the fact that Hingham has maintained its commitment to open town meeting, where every voter who chooses to take part takes part with voice and vote, is an essential element of the town's DNA. I think Hingham would be quite a different community if we did not have open town meeting. Self-governance is a precious thing, and the fact that we have this opportunity in this community should not be taken for granted. So to preside at town meeting takes some work, takes some study, preparation, and I endeavor to do it reasonably well, fairly, and to allow the voters to feel that they can have well-warranted confidence, have faith in the meeting, that every voice will be heard within reason, and votes will be taken accurately so that we don't think, wow, what just happened? That would be a real failure on my part. The other thing that the moderator does, which is perhaps less visible, is to share with the select board the opportunity, the privilege, and the responsibility to appoint citizens to various boards and committees. The moderator has many fewer appointments than do the select board, but I do have, or the position has the responsibility, for example, of appointing all 15 members of the advisory committee, all members of the personnel board, various members of other boards and committees, and then ad hoc committees or commissions that are established from time to time, a building committee, the public safety committee, and the like. So in terms of what we do, one final observation is, in addition to open town meeting and the freedom to participate in the governance of our own shared community, I think the fact that we are not partisan. I don't run as a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or a socialist. I'm a citizen, as are each of you. So no matter what we're doing it for the community, for our shared home. So uncontested or not, I invite you to cast your ballot for the moderator. And if I lose to an uncontested opponent, it'll tell me something about my tenure since 2012.
Thank you, Michael. And I would ask each candidate to, as Michael has done, go back to their seat to receive and answer questions. So does anyone in the audience have a question for Mike Puzo? Laura.
Hi.
Hi.
Laura Marwell, 30 Summit Drive. So we have no contested races this year, and in thinking about it, I was wondering if you have any ideas why we don't, and in particular, I was wondering, have the number of positions of appointed and elected officials expanded a lot recently, so that we just need more people, or do you think it's a lack of enthusiasm? Do you have any thoughts on that?
We do have more appointed positions, just because we've had more opportunities to study things, to have study committees, master plan committees, building committees, high school building committees, public safety building committees, and the like. So there are only so many people who can give the time to serve. I do think, and this is a personal, it's hard to separate, your person from a given office, but I do think that running for office is very different than accepting an appointment. And there are people who just do not want to run for an office. The position of moderator is completely apolitical. So in terms of, I don't have a platform. I don't have, if you vote for me, I will conduct the meeting fairly. I'll count the votes properly. And that's not what you do. So I do think it requires more, a different kind of person or a different commitment to the town, not better or worse, just different, particularly to go into a contested election where you're trying to beat someone, But I will say that there's something called the gavel line, which is a, I don't know what, moderator chat room or something, in which I take a very passive role, but I do read it periodically. And I will say that one of the things that is quite different about Hingham is the number of people who volunteer to serve. There are many communities where they have open town meeting or representative town meeting, and there are a dearth of people stepping up. So the moderators in part just want to whine a bit about the fact that they don't have people, or, oh, I had to appoint X to this committee, that committee, and a study committee, because I had 21 slots to fill and I had 11 people offer, and then I had to go twist arms and like. That is not the case here. Even throughout the pandemic, the select board and the moderator were interviewing 60, 65, 70 people for open positions. As to why people don't want to take out papers and run for an election, that's beyond my job classification. I don't know.
Do we have any other questions for Michael? Yes, sir. Please, microphone, and please identify yourself.
Okay. Thank you. John Borger, 53 Lafayette Avenue. I just have a comment. I know why you're running unopposed. It's because it's a thankless job. and I'm amazed at how well you do it. So I just wanted to say that, and I really appreciate, I think a lot of people appreciate the fact that you're willing to do this job and you do it so well. So thanks.
Well, that's very kind of you. The only place I would part company is it's not thankless. It's very gratifying to live, and without waxing poetic, I think when one looks at the fact that we live in this community, it's peaceful. I mean, in the truest sense of the word, like we're not at risk right now. We have the opportunity to meet, to convene as a community, to decide what kind of schools we want, what kind of money we're going to spend, are we going to buy our water system? I mean, it's just an incredible, incredible opportunity we have to live freely in a community where we may not all agree, but we ultimately have civil discourse, make reasoned decisions, and proceed as a community. So in that regard, there's a lot of psychic pleasure, if you will, that comes from being part of this great American experiment in self-governance.
Yes, another question.
Uh-oh. You got cut off before you open your mouth, right? Right.
So I know.
Please.
Who are you,
Oh,
miss?
sorry. Libby Claypool, 7 Adams Court. I know there's a strategy with how sometimes controversial warrant articles are presented at town meeting, and I actually don't know. Does the moderator have any input in that at all, and if not, is that just strictly a town administrator and/or selectman role?
The moderator has zero to do with the warrant. I get to see it ahead of time to correct the grammar, which doesn't require much correction, but the select board publishes the warrant. So the select board, it's not a town administrator, it's your select board. That's the way the rules work, and obviously there is somewhat of an art to composing. I suppose it's not unlike car chases and movies, you don't want them all at the beginning. But I forget how many articles there are this year, maybe 37, something like that. But no, moderator has nothing to do with it, zero.
Yeah, I just brought that up because sometimes with controversial ones, they tend to sometimes can be later in the evening when people have to leave or the bus for Linden Ponds is going home. And so I just wasn't sure
Yep.
whose role that is. So thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, you bet, Libby.
Yes, Judy.
Is the
Your name?
Judy Kelly,
Sorry.
19 Harvest Lane. Are we definitely never going back to the afternoon session that we had during COVID, after COVID? I think a lot of people liked it. Did they find that this was, I think it brought out as many people as you do on an evening, especially for people who have to go to work later. And what happened to that? Did they make a decision that it was not conducive, or how does that fare?
The select board calls the meeting, the select board calls the time of the meeting, the moderator does not. A couple of observations. I mean, this is one of those things on which reasonable minds obviously differ. Some people say, there are so many activities on Saturday, there is church services, there are Saturdays, Sundays, Fridays, Thursdays, whatever. And the long tradition, of course, has been to have the town meeting. Now this year, of course, because of Passover, it's beginning on Wednesday, not Monday. And in terms of numbers, Judy, there were many fewer people at the COVID meetings, many fewer. I mean,
On the lawn at the town hall,
at the multi-purpose field, formerly known as football field, with the one with the goalposts, right?
It seemed like there was an equal amount from the ones it wasn't right after COVID, but the last one
Yeah.
that they had, 2021,
Yeah.
town hall, seemed to be well attended.
It was well attended for a meeting at that time and forum, but it was nothing close to major issues when we've had a school or the acquisition of the water company or an override, nothing close.
Are there any more questions? This is a lot of questions for Mike.
I tell you, so
We're on the hot seat.
that's right. It's like going into the appeals court and having a lively bench. You're like, whoa. Right. Apparently my brief didn't persuade the bench.
If not, please join me in thanking Michael for town moderator. Round of applause. Thank you, Ken, if you like. Next up is Carol Falvey, who's running for re-election as town clerk. This is a 3-year term, and she's running unopposed.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you all for having me today. So it has been an honor for me to serve as town clerk for the past 3 years. I've learned so much during this time, and especially, when we were all campaigning for this role, I don't think any of us realized the breadth of services that the town clerk's office provides to the community. Obviously, being an election year, voting is first and foremost on everybody's minds. As part of that process, we register voters, we process early vote-by-mail applications, which has now become a regular part of our voting system. But in our everyday non-election lives, we issue and distribute birth and death certificates every day. We post hundreds and hundreds of meeting agendas in compliance with the open meeting law, especially for the school committee. We oversee the filing of marriage intentions. We field hundreds of public record requests. We issue business certificates, and the biggest surprise to me, we issue so many dog licenses you couldn't even wrap your head around it. We also swear in new police officers and all the residents that serve on the boards that Mike talked about earlier. We also assist with town meeting, and my office submits the filings to the Attorney General's office for all the zoning law and zoning bylaw changes. So when I ran for this position 3 years ago, I had municipal experience and charitable experience, as well as a legal background that I brought to the office. I served on the Hingham School Committee for 6 years. I was a trustee of the Hingham Education Foundation for 6 years. And because of those experiences, it really has helped me in this office to understand how town government works and the various roles that all of the groups play in it. I grew up in Hingham. I'm part of a family that instilled public service in all of us. I graduated from Hingham High School. I graduated from the College of the Holy Cross and from Suffolk University Law School. My husband, Mark Van Dyne, and I raised our family here, and our children are now young adults with careers of their own, which is great. In terms of my term ahead, assuming that I do not get outvoted by blanks, I would like to focus more on expanding our communication efforts, and I hope to work with other stakeholders in this objective. People receive information in so many ways today, and we need to learn and adapt to those. And sort of a surprise for me taking on this role is that there is no communication department at Town Hall. Our IT department can only do so much, and currently they post whatever the department heads provide to them. So it's something that I would love to see my office and the town as a whole work on together. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge the help and support that I've received from Eileen McCracken in the past 3 years. She has been, in her retirement, so available to me and to my office. She is our town clerk of council, to bring up a legal phrase. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Do we have any questions for Carol Falvey? Yes.
Hi, Sue Wetzel, 239 High Street. I call your office periodically, but I haven't met you, so nice to meet
I think
you.
we've talked on the phone.
Yes, we have. The question that I have is, I understand that the election is paramount in many people's minds, and registering voters and all that, but you didn't mention what you were doing to ensure that the registered voters in the town of Hingham are the correct registered voters and how you are removing from the rolls the people that no longer live in the town. That's a little gray area in my mind, and I'm particularly concerned since for the last 3 years I've gotten a copy of what I call the nosy book, but the book of, and the house next to me has been owned by a new person since 2021, and yet they are still listed as a registered voter in the book. And I just don't understand the process to remove these people.
Sure.
And if you could enlighten me on that. And then the other question I had, that's one question which hopefully won't take too long. And then the other question that might, okay. Well, the other question that I had is in terms of the open meeting law. Is that posted? Is that easily available? Because I'm a little gray on what that means. So do you have information? Is it posted on your website?
So taking the second question first, I'm not sure if it is, but I'm going to make a note. And so open meeting law is that you have to post a public agenda 48 business hours ahead of the scheduled time. That excludes weekends and it excludes holidays. So that's something that when we post the agendas that are sent to us, that's something that we operate under. But as to whether it is posted, I honestly couldn't tell you. I'm not sure that it is under ours, whether it's under the select boards, but happy to look into it and have it posted. In second question, no?
Well, just in clarification with that, I guess I don't understand what meetings are supposed to be posted and what meetings aren't for town business. That's part of the question. So thank you. And if you can get back to me on that, that'd be great.
So the second question, something that walking into the office I've learned a lot about. So I cannot remove somebody from the voter roll unless I have a written authorization that they have moved or they have registered to vote in another town and we take them off our roll, or another state. We frequently get communications from New Hampshire, Connecticut, New York, saying so-and-so has moved here, and we remove them from the Hingham rolls. There is a process which we actually undertook last fall, where we sent out notices to people. Like, I've noticed the same thing, where people are in the street listing, and I know they most likely 99% of me knows that they've moved away, but I can't just take them off without giving them written notice. They have an opportunity to tell me that, no, I still live here, or if I don't hear from them, I cannot legally remove them for 2 state election cycles. That's 4 years. So I went through the whole effort this past fall, wasn't even in my budget either, so, but of mailing and postage to 1,000 people probably, saying, you need to get back to me and tell me you still live here, or I can delete you. And it will take me up to 4 years to do that. So it's a process the town clerks go through, but it's time consuming, it's expensive, because I have to not only pay for the postage for the mailing, I have to pay for the postage for them to send it back to me. But we've done it. So unfortunately, you won't see the result for a few years.
Thank you for that information, but lately I've been reminding a lot of people is that we're paying for that, the taxpayers of the town of Hingham.
We're paying for what?
For the postage.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And so that's why, I'm going to follow up. I'm not
You
sure
get
I'm
2
gonna get
minutes
2
because
minutes,
there's 2
okay?
questions.
Yeah.
So let me just say that even on the censuses, so what happens, people will send them in and the new owner will say they've moved. I can inactivate them as a voter, which is what we do, but unless that person signs the form, I can't remove them. So part of my, like, when you tell me that your adult child has moved, is living in Boston now, they need to sign the form. But I do inactivate them, which means if they go to vote, they have to present an identification and tell me that they still live at that Hingham address. So that is a bit of a precaution that helps to protect the system.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome.
Are there any other questions for Carol? Laura?
Time and talk.
I'm curious. a few
Please
years
identify
ago,
yourself.
I think excuse me, Laura Marwell, 30 Summit Drive. I think in the previous town master plan,
Mhm.
they
or following on it, they enacted a Hingham Archives Task Force. It was funded for a number of years, and then it lost funding. In the new master plan, they identify again that archives are an issue for Hingham. And I don't believe this is in your budget either, but I'm wondering, is there any movement forward to get our arms around archiving? Because there are lots of documents at the town hall as well as at the library and other places. So I'm just curious,
Right.
Is there anything going on
So it is
there?
something that has come up. Really, it's the only part of the master plan that sort of falls within the town clerk department. There is nothing in our budget for this year, and honestly, this current year with the 4 elections, we really, our focus has been on that. As well as we have a new voter information, the state is rolling out a new voter information system, which is going to happen, it's supposed to happen now. So now it's probably gonna happen after, I'm assuming at this point, after November, but in any event, it will be a focus in the next budget cycle. You're welcome.
Yes.
Hi.
Judy Kelly, 19 Harvest Lane. I just recently received an email that said that the town hall will be closed on Friday from now on. Isn't that correct? I know the town clerk's office and several offices.
Well, there is some talk about, there has been some talk, but no decision has been made yet.
Okay, and are we the only one in the neighborhood? All the other surrounding towns, are they doing it, or is this seem
I
to
believe
be?
there are some other towns that have a 4-day extended day work week. I
Okay,
think
you
Hull-
don't know offhand which ones
I
they?
believe Hull is not open on Fridays, but I couldn't tell you. I mean, yeah, you could check their website, but there are, there is some movement, I guess, for, looking at how we work, and, after COVID, things have changed in the workplace.
And Tuesday night, you will
Tuesday, we're open till 7.
still be open till 7 under those circumstances. But is it
That will-
coming up at town meeting?
You'd have to check with the select board's office
Okay.
on that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Carol? If not, let's give Carol a hand. Thank you very much. And next up is Clark Frazier, who is running for re-election to the Sewer Commission. This is a 3-year term, and this race too is uncontested.
Good afternoon, and thank you for putting on this forum and forcing me to write a statement and get organized. My goal is to beat blank in the election. I only know of one person that never did that, and that was Billy Bulger. Now, I'm an MIT graduate and with Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and Master of Science in Transportation, and I'm currently chair of the commission. The town of Hingham has 3 sewer districts. The Hingham Sewer District serves Hingham Square, Crow Point, Hewitt's Cove, the whole shore, up to Stutter's Neck. The Weir River District serves West Corner and Rockland Street, and more complicated in Hull Street, and co-joined with Cohasset, and we send wastewater to Hull. The other district sends wastewater to MWRA, and that's really complicated. Hingham system was constructed in the 1950s, so it's approaching 70 years of age, and then the Weir River District was put in the 1990s. The 2024 town meeting warrant includes a once-in-a-generation $13 million bond issue, the warrant, I've got copies, and to replace the sewer main on Lincoln Street on 3A from Downer Avenue to Stutter's Neck. We've had 12 breaks in the force main in the last 21 years. So that's time. And I just want to say that we also have an opportunity to get an ARPA grant of $2.5 million, which will help offset the cost, which is otherwise entirely paid by the ratepayers. The sewer department needs a strategic plan and asset management system. We don't have that right now. We just do 5-year budgeting. So we have control of our costs and we can keep the rates steady. The most immediate issue is to improve the I&I program, which stands for inflow and infiltration. Inflow is the leaks, and infiltration of leaks, inflow are illegal connections. We're putting more water into the system than comes out of the tap. So we need to fix that because that's costing us money. We do not process any of our own wastewater. It either goes to MWRA or to the town of Hull. So that's something I'm hoping in the next 3 years to get a real handle on. And the other thing is to work on communication so we have better reporting. So I'm asking for your vote for re-election. Thank you.
Thank you, Clark. Any questions from the audience for Clark? Yes, in the back. Microphone's coming.
Hi, I'm Johanna Seelan, 166 Hersey Street.
Can you turn the mic on?
No. Okay, how am I now? Johanna Seelan, 166 Hersey. I was just curious if there's any move to add sewage lines in South Hingham for development down there, industrial development or commercial.
If I can answer that, there was a plan, a whole study done, and I'm still trying to find a copy of the report. I did finally find it on the town website, and it's kind of complicated. It's a major process, and if the town has to kick in any money, then there's an obstacle. We do need, World's End is not sewered, and when I kayak, I see now green algae in the water behind the courthouse. And so we still have a lot of areas that are very sensitive. And the reason we put sewers in is to protect either the aquifer or the shoreline. And so, yes, I'd like to do that. We also have a sewer district in South Hingham, which has never been implemented. But right now, my priority is to get us back to a state of good repair and to improve our operations so we have enough credibility to ask for expansion.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Libby Claypool, 7 Adams Court. So I know that there have been, I think, pretty significant increases in the sewer rates, and maybe you could tell us what those have been. But what I'm hearing is with all this potential capital expansion and repair that you're looking to do going forward, obviously that's, I hear dollar signs on that. So should we expect rates to go up? Because it is the ratepayers that are actually going to be paying for that versus the taxpayers. So I guess I'd ask those two questions about the percent of rate increase and how much that would go up with these capital repairs you're talking about.
Okay, the answer to the first question is that our expenses have increased enormously, particularly repairs. The last time, normally when we had a force main break on Route 3A, it cost about $50,000. The last one cost $80,000. And the prices of some things have nearly doubled. But it's my objective to try to understand and stabilize the rates. Now, we didn't lower the rates this last year because then we had some more problems with pumps and things like that. So get a better handle of that and get a better long-term goal. So that the second question is, it's expected the impact of the bond issue will be about 10%. And if you read the literature, you'll find that if you keep the rates low, then you're robbing the future generations because they're going to have to pay. So the best thing that we can do is reduce the I&I. Because that's maybe costing us as much as 20, 30% of our budget. And that's a moving target because every year we don't fix a leak, it gets bigger. And any of that water that gets into the system is going to, we pay for it. Now, the other problem is resiliency. We're getting, because tides have risen, the sea level's risen 6 or 8 inches since the system was first built. We're having more and more risk of getting extraneous water or seawater into the system, or inundation or damage to pump stations. So I'm trying to get our management focused on really a longer term view, which is, I think, would be the answer to keeping the rates steady.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Clark? If not, thank you, Clark.
Thanks.
Give Clark a hand. Next up, Steve Melia, who's running for Recreation Commission. And Steve, I believe this is a 5-year term? Is that
Yes,
correct?
it is.
Uncontested also.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me today, first of all. I'm the new guy, I think. I've never run for election in this town before, so I thought maybe I'd just give myself give you a little bit of my background. I grew up in Hingham my whole life. My wife Sarah and I have 3 kids in the Hingham Public Schools, a sophomore in high school, 7th grader and 8th grader, right? Yeah. Okay. They are actually 7th generation on my mom's side of living in Hingham. So we've been around for a while. I grew up in Hingham, played baseball my entire life through the Hingham Little League systems. Through high school, I was lucky enough to play in college. I went to Amherst College, got my bachelor's degree there, graduated, and have an MBA from Babson College out in Wesley. The Rec Commission they've done a great job since I've been paying attention of access to the fields and playgrounds and building new things for all town residents. And it's why it has really attracted me. What they've done over behind Town Hall at Cronin Field, which used to be where I played baseball, that was our baseball field for the varsity team. We would have to figure out a way to get over to Cronin every day for practice after school. I believe the JV team plays there now, but they have installed a new scoreboard, a new backstop, new dugouts, new batting cages, new basketball court, new hockey court, a new playground is going in shortly, and they have a walking path that is all around all these things now. So it looks great, and it really opened my eyes to hopefully wanting to participate in a little bit more of what was going on in town. I think that's everything for me. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve? Yes, in the back.
Hi.
Okay. Hi, Johanna Seelan again. I don't know if you're the right person to ask this to, but I just wondered if you knew what was happening with the town pool. We voted 2 years ago to build a beautiful new town pool, and I know it's been in court. There are 2 neighbors that have blocked it, and I just wondered what is happening with that and how long it will be before we can use the pool again.
Yeah, I don't have the job yet, so I don't know, and it's all in litigation still. So I know not many people can even comment on it around town.
Nope. It's in litigation.
Well, any other questions for Steve? Laura?
Laura Marwell, 30 Summit Drive. Every now and again, there's talk of moving the rec center from Town Hall over to Bear Cove Park. Is there any developments in that direction?
To move the whole rec center, not that I know of, but one thing I forgot to mention, I do know that over to Bear Cove and in Carlson, it was recently approved that they're going to build pickleball courts over there. So that could come with that. The design, it's really early. The design phase hasn't even come out. The design will be circulated as soon as that's done, and then potentially, the buildings that are over there right now. So I'm also the president of the Hingham Girls Softball, the youth league, and we've looked a lot at those buildings to try and put some turf in there, do some inside things, but there's not a lot of infrastructure there. There's very limited electricity over there, so it's tough it would cost a lot to redo those buildings.
What about the fitness room? Sometimes they talk about moving that. Is that on the table at all?
I haven't, not that I've heard of.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Steve.
Hi.
I should know this.
Please identify yourself.
Oh, Leah Godfrey Tucker Slane. Was a neighbor of Steve's. I should know this, but does the Rec Commission have any influence on the baseball or football leagues that we have?
Not the leagues. Since the field study that was done a few years ago, the rec department now has taken over maintenance of all the fields. So that's been very helpful. I know for me, for running a league, it's very helpful to get practices scheduled and actual field time and things like that. But they haven't. They don't actually do anything with the. Mark Thorell, who runs is the director of the rec department, knows all the heads of the leagues very well at this point, but including me. But they don't have anything to do with them on a daily basis.
Like choosing coaches or?
Right. No.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Didn't think so. Thank you.
Tell Matt I said hi.
Any other questions?
I just have a quick one.
Oh.
Libby Claypool, 7 Adams Court. So you mentioned the field improvement project, and I know I was on some town committees at the time that was implemented, and the first year it was funded. So I'm just wondering, do you know where that stands as far as, I forget how many years the project was, and whether it's been, they've been continuing to make those improvements annually? So where we are in that overall project, time-wise?
I don't know exactly where we are in the overall project. I can't tell you that there have been a lot of improvements at the fields around town. Going back to Carlson again, the baseball field was the infield was completely ripped up. The backstop as part of the project, the backstop at the girls' softball field was raised to be more, almost on par with the boys' backstop. So there has been a lot of improvement that's gone on around town. I mentioned, Cronin over behind Town Hall. That's all part of the study, but I don't know exactly where things stand at this point.
I just wasn't sure with funding, whether
right.
it kept going or if they had to stop it because it was just,
Again, I don't have
Yeah.
the job, so.
But,
Yeah.
We'll expect a full
I
report
will.
next
I'll get
year.
back to you. I'll get back to you. Yeah, no. I'll get back to you in 5 years.
If there are no other questions for Steve, then our next up is Laura Burns, who's running for the Light Plant. And Laura, I'm kind of forgetting, what is that term?
Light board.
Light board.
Light commissioner.
Light
No,
commissioner, yes?
Light board.
How long? Duration?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years. Okay, you're on.
Thanks. Thanks to my friends of the Republican Town Committee for this opportunity. Massachusetts has legally committed to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050, and in 2021, the town of Hingham set the same goal, but with a target of 2040. So turning away from fossil fuels inevitably means an increase in electricity usage over the long term, and also a change in the seasonal and the daily profile of the demand. So my first goal is to help ensure that HMLP is prepared for the future so it can maintain its sterling 131-year record of reliable, affordable electricity into the mass electrification era. To do that, we need an upgrade of the transmission service coming into our town. Right now, all of our electricity comes into town on 2 lines, which are on the same set of poles. This vulnerability has to be fixed. If those poles went down, the entire town would be dark. The proposed project includes a new underground transmission line and a new substation built next to the old one to complement, not to replace. This project was underway when I joined the board. It's fallen to the current board to take the painful step of raising rates in order to fund this project. We are putting revenue from increased rates into a depreciation fund to allow us to buy down the size of the bond we'll need to avoid a much larger rate shock later on. The original purpose was for reliability, but since the first proposal, we've learned that the capacity increase from the new transmission line will be required to meet the expected rise in demand from the trend towards electrification. With this project completed, we'll be well situated to meet the demand of the future. In addition to seeing this project onward, I'm hoping my second term will see the adoption of a demand response program and a time of use rate structure, both of which will save ratepayers money and cut HMLP's energy purchases during the most expensive time of the day. I'm looking forward to serving the town for another term. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions for Laura running for Light Board? Yes, Libby.
Still Libby Claypool, 7 Adams Court. So Laura, I know I've seen around town and even near where I am, these electric vehicle charging stations. So my question is, are the people that come to charge their vehicles at that unit, are they paying for the electricity to charge their car, or are all the other ratepayers paying to subsidize their electric use?
The people who charge there are paying for their own electricity. At a level 2 charger, they're paying 22 kilowatts per hour. And at the level 3 charger, 35 cents. Did I say 22 cents per kilowatt hour? For the fancy chargers, 35 cents per kilowatt hour, which is wildly in excess of what we pay for our electricity. So we're making a deal there. The master plan called for the development of public EV charging stations, which weren't in existence at the time the master plan was written. And now, thanks to available state grants, which is neither did the ratepayers pay for the stations, we now operate a public charging network of 17 chargers at 6 locations. So that's kind of the story on that.
Okay, great. And I mean, do they use a credit card?
Yeah.
How do they get billed?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
And I think there's an app, the Flow app, that's
Oh.
associated with it, and you pay through that
Oh, great.
app.
Hi, Leah Godfrey. So does it go to their light plant, their charge, to their own bill, or does it go to ours? I mean, what if somebody came from Walpole and stopped
Somebody
in?
comes from Walpole, they pay with a credit card, and that money comes to us. It's our electricity we're selling them, and we sell it to them for either 22 cents or 35 cents per
Okay.
kilowatt hour.
It's a ridiculous question, but I always notice at the shipyard, which I walk always with my dog, and I know that because I chat with these people that they're not from Hingham, which doesn't really matter, but maybe it will someday. You know?
Well, I look at it kind of like the restaurant tax. So many people from out of town come and eat dinner in Hingham. That's a big win for us. And it's a lot like that. People come from out of town and charge at those chargers. We're making money we wouldn't otherwise have made.
Susan Wetzel, 239 High Street, Hingham. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Sue.
So I have been attending website and found that the cost of that, according to the website, I took a screenshot because I want to make sure I remembered it, was $55 million to $65 million for the line that you discussed earlier. However, on March 19th, I went to a meeting in Hingham at the Crossroads Church in Braintree, which was a Hingham-sponsored and paid-for meeting with your consultant and Eversource. There were only 3 people from Hingham there, so talk about the communication plan. But there were 3 people from Hingham there. It was myself, my husband, one other person that identified himself as being from Hingham. And Tom Morahan was the speaker, as well as the consultant. And there was a question that came up at the meeting, but not by me, but by someone in the meeting from Weymouth that wanted to know how much that line was going to be. And Tom said it was going to be $110 million and that it would be totally borne by the people of the town of Hingham. And I said to him, there is nobody here from Hingham. Why don't the people of Hingham realize that they're paying for $110 million? $110 million. I asked him that twice. So anyway, I have talked with Tom. I met with him last Thursday with a couple of people, and we talked about that. And I'd like to know if the light board is going to be involved in the communication plan so that people know. I have a list of dates in 2022 that open meetings were held, but I'm not sure who came to that. So the question number 1 is, what is the communication plan for this project? How on God's earth are we going to pay $110 million? I was happy to hear your projects weren't quite as high. And so that's the question. And I think from what I heard, it was a bond issue that was going to be placed out through town meeting. But the other thing that I did find out through many questions was that we already have $20 million in rec funds that have been stockpiled for this. And then on another phone call meeting we had that there was $8 million in our stabilization fund. So it sounds like that Hingham Electric Light is stockpiling money for this project, and yet we have tremendous rate increases that I'll let the other people talk about that. So anyway, so the question is, what is the communication plan going forward so that everyone in the town of Hingham knows what's going on? I know we did request of the light board to stop holding the meetings at 7:30 in the morning so that more people could be involved, because we felt that that was a horrible time, and the board voted no just 2 weeks ago.
So the question is, what's the communication plan for the transmission project? And the other question is?
Well, so that the people in the town of Hingham that are paying for this can know what's going on, the meeting time being at 7:30 in the meeting. And maybe you can explain to the people why that was voted no when we specifically asked for it to be held at a reasonable time in the evening.
Okay, second question first. We held a discussion about whether or not 7:30 a.m., which is the traditional time that the light board has always met, is the best time. And for the people who are currently on the board, one member has small children, and he stood for election on knowing that the time was 7:30 in the morning, and that worked for him. So that's one person's point of view. But the other aspect of it is that when we meet at 7:30 in the morning, we have as many as 6 or 8 staff people attending the meeting. So when we are discussing some technical question, we can get our answer. Is this plausible? Does this work? How are you doing this? We can get our answer in real time. Whereas if we were meeting in the evening, we could only have the general manager at our meeting unless we want to pay overtime to 6 or 8 people, which no, I don't want to do that. So it could slow down all of the work that we're doing by quite some time for having to wait to get an answer to a question, and then we'll hear about it next month. So I think those were the 2 main reasons why they're going to stay at 7:30 in the morning. But we did discuss that it was probably a really good idea, and I think we had agreement. We didn't vote on it exactly, but the idea that there may be discussions that we need to have with the public, like about the transmission project, that we could have occasional public hearings in the evening at a public hearing kind of time when there are things that we really think the public would want to hear about. A lot of our discussion is pretty technical and will cause people's eyes to glaze over. And I have nothing but love and admiration for people who keep coming to the light board meetings once they've been to a couple of them. I hope we're going to do that in the future. I don't think a light board meeting would be the best place to learn about the transmission project per se. I think something like, as you said, we had 3 meetings in 2022 to explain the project in Hingham to Hingham people, and I was at 2 of those 3 meetings. Some people were there. One of the issues is that the whole the length of this project is so long. It's like, as I said, it was underway when I got on the board. It may be still underway whenever I get off the board, because that's how long grid updates take. We're about to submit it to the Energy Facilities Siting Board in Massachusetts this month. We hope it's happening this month. They take 2 years to deliver their answer on whether or not you have suitably cited this. So this is going to be with us for a long time. And like I said, we're not hiring that public relations firm again. I'm hoping that our communications director, Brianna Bennett, is going to take a more forward role in planning how we can keep the public advised on what's going on. But I've also found it's hard to keep people's attention for something that started 5 years ago and may not be completed for another 10 years. So I don't know if I answered all your questions. Did I answer all your questions?
Oh, I think you have people's attention with $110 million. So if you make those meetings, I think people will be interested in figuring out how they're going to pay.
Okay, so when I came on the board, the projection for the whole project was $65 million. Now, I don't remember ever breaking out the line from the substation, but now the $110 million is what we think the whole project is going to cost. I'm going to be frank with you, and I don't think that's going to be the final number. So that is, we are indeed, as I mentioned in my speech, stockpiling cash from the rate increases that we have put in today, so that when the moment comes, we will have some money so that we can buy down the cost of the bond that we're going to have to bring to pay for that project. So that is in fact what we're doing.
Thank you, Laura.
Libby Claypool, 7 Adams Court. Just 2 quick things. Do any of your meetings, are they held in hybrid format so that, I mean, I don't know if that would make a difference for.
They're all virtual. And they are all up on the Light Plant website the day after. And we have just agreed to have them all on Harbor Media as well. So there will also, not only will it be on the TV channel, but there will be a link to our meetings on the Harbor Media website as well.
But can attendee get on Zoom, say?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, just checking that.
Yeah.
And then on the $110 million project you're talking about, which may be north of that, as you said, obviously, as to Leah's point of where we've got a lot of people out of town coming and using our charging stations, that added demand is what's also forcing this project to happen as soon as it can, because that's just putting further demand on the current infrastructure. So I would assume that some of that capital beyond the rates they're getting charged for each unit of electricity they're using, is that some of that cost would also be borne by users for those particular charging stations. Should we expect that as ratepayers?
I'm assuming that everybody in this room is from Hingham. I'm going to say I feel like those people are paying through the nose for the electricity that they're getting from us. They pay way more than we do.
Yeah.
But the amount of demand from those charging stations is insignificant compared with the demand that we're going to face from people buying their electric cars and plugging them in at home. That is the demand that we are expecting, along with the electrification of heating systems, people moving from gas and oil to electric heating systems. Those two things together are the bulk of the increased demand that we're expecting.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that those public stations that put demand, that create added demand.
Yeah, good question. So let me just say first about EVs, we don't have an incentive to buy an electric car. We do have a program that we're fussing with right now. Our goal with EVs is to incentivize people not to charge their cars between 5 and 7 p.m. when they get home from work and plug it in. That's our high demand time. We pay far more for the electricity between 5 and 7 than we do at 2 in the morning. And so we have been struggling to figure out a way to incentivize those people not to charge then, because their impact on our demand will be far less if we can incentivize them somehow to charge at another time. So those incentives, we haven't figured out how to do that right yet, but we're on the way. And when we do, that will serve all ratepayers by moving that demand off of that time. The other incentive structure is, it's all on our website, and you can see what the incentives for all the various things are. It's paid for by ratepayers. We are required by the Commonwealth to set aside a certain amount of our revenue to paying for energy efficiency updates, at least. So one of the things that we do with the money that we're required to set aside by the Commonwealth is we offer free energy audits to homeowners who can figure out what they can do to their home and what incentives they can access to make their house more energy efficient. And that will help not only on electric bills, but also on your gas and oil bill if you have something like that. So I think I answered your question. Is paid for by the ratepayers. Some of it is required by the state, and we don't have an incentive to buy an electric car.
So with that, I'd like to thank Laura. I'd like to move along because we have 2 school committee candidates and we have less than a half hour left. So I think if Laura's willing to hang out afterwards, maybe.
Always. I just want to say I love talking about this stuff, so I'm happy to be available. I know you all do too. So I'm happy to be available at any time and any place to talk about HMLP stuff with people. I love to talk about it.
So that's an invitation to stay late. So thank you very much. First round, if our 2 school committee candidates could come to the front. We'll start with Tim Dempsey, who's running for re-election. And both of these terms, uncontested 3-year terms. Thanks, Lois. By the way, everybody, we're going to have this, since we have 2 school committee candidates, we'll revert to our former practice of letting both candidates say their opening statement and then questions for both candidates to answer after both statements.
Excellent, that makes sense. We're not actually in competition with each other because there are 2 open seats and 2 people running for it, so that especially makes sense. I would want to start off thanking the Republican Town Committee for the opportunity to speak. I'm Tim Dempsey, a candidate for re-election to Hingham School Committee. I was elected to the school committee during the pandemic, and the last 3 years have shown us how significant that crisis was for our kids and how far we have to climb to overcome the learning loss and social emotional damage the pandemic did. This continues to be a challenge we are addressing head on, and our work is not finished with this yet. For this reason, I'm fully dedicated to the continuation and enhancement of our multi-tiered systems of support program. MTSS has proven to be an invaluable framework for addressing the diverse needs of our students and ensuring that every child has access to the resources and support that they need to thrive academically, socially, and emotionally as we continue to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. You can ask a question about MTSS if people don't know what that is, but I have 2 minutes, so I'm going to go on. I'm also excited for the opening of the new Foster Elementary School. This state-of-the-art facility will provide our students with modern learning environments that promote innovation, collaboration, and academic excellence. We're committed to ensuring a smooth transition for our students, staff, and families as we embark on this exciting new chapter in our district's history. Furthermore, we support the ongoing improvements in special education. It is an imperative that we provide exceptional support to students with special needs and their families, and we are committed to implementing policies and funding measures that prioritize the best practices, responsiveness, empathy, and collaboration. In our efforts to maintain a positive relationship with our educators, we are diligently working toward closing fair contracts with the Hingham Education Association, the teachers union in town, teachers and custodians and paraprofessionals and administrative assistants. Teachers and educational staff play a vital role in shaping the future of our students and community, so we're committed to ensuring that they receive competitive compensation and are supported in their professional endeavors. This has been admittedly a very challenging negotiation cycle as we work within the town's financial means to reach contracts that both demonstrate our respect and support for Hingham's educators and is sustainable. For Hingham, we simply cannot sign contracts that can only be paid for with layoffs that will harm our children. We cannot follow the COVID crisis with another self-imposed crisis. And after the contracts are closed, we're dedicated to working to heal relationships that may have been damaged during this particularly painful negotiation cycle. In conclusion, I'm deeply committed to advancing the educational experiences and opportunities available to the students of Hingham. I look forward to collaborating with our community stakeholders to ensure that every child receives support and the support and resources they need to succeed. Together, we can continue to further Hingham's vision of a school district that fosters excellence, equity, and innovation for every student. Please use your 2 votes for school committee for my friend and colleague Carrie Nee and myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. So Carrie, if you would step up, please.
Thank you to the Hingham Town Republican Committee for hosting us this afternoon. My name is Carrie Nee, and I'm running for a 3rd term on the Hingham School Committee. Our family has lived in Hingham for a little over 18 years. I grew up on the South Shore, and so when we were looking for a place to settle down and raise our family, we chose Hingham because of its natural beauty, its history, and its excellent schools. We love this town, and I feel honored to serve it. I never thought I'd get involved in town government. I'm an attorney and a former freelance musician, but our family circumstances took us in a different direction. My husband Glenn and I have 2 boys with significant disabilities, and so we took a different path. And for me, that meant becoming a professional volunteer, which I now understand that's what Hingham runs on. So, this is my 6th year on the school committee. I served as chair for 2 years, and I served during a historically challenging time to be on a school committee. Throughout all of it, though, I am proud that we stayed laser focused on what was best for students and for Hingham. Our most recent challenge, as Tim mentioned, is the contract negotiations with all 7 HPS unions, and I serve as the chair of the negotiating subcommittee. I'm proud of the work that we did to collaborate with and quickly reach agreements with our bus and van drivers union and our custodial union. And we are working with the other unions right now to reach competitive contracts with them. We know what an important role our educational staff play in shaping the future of our students and our community. So we are committed to ensuring that they are competitively compensated while working within the town's financial means. Over the past 6 years, we've accomplished a lot. We developed a strategic plan for the district. We built a new leadership team, supported the building of a new and much needed Foster Elementary School, and worked with the town to pass an override along with a financial plan to ensure a sustainable budget going forward. While there will be challenges, there will continue to be challenges for the school department and committee, I'm optimistic because we have skilled, dedicated people at every level who truly care about our students. I'm honored to be part of this work, and I ask for one of your 2 votes on April 27th and ask that you vote, give Tim your other one. So, thank you.
I see a hand raised in the back.
Hi, Johanna Seelan, 166 Hersey Street. I just had a question about parental leave. I know that since 2021, the state has had paid parental leave for all, bigger employers, and they give 26 weeks. The schools were not automatically put into it, but they could have voted to be included. And I wondered why Hingham is not included in the program.
And I think if we go Carrie first and then Tim.
Okay. Yep. And so thank you for the question. Yes, municipalities were not automatically included in that law. My understanding is that it's not 26 weeks of totally paid parental leave. I think the employee puts in a contribution. So that's something that's we've discussed with our unions throughout the contract negotiations. Our current offer would get them by the end of 4 years of a contract to 8 weeks of paid parental leave and then access to 4 weeks of accrued sick time on top of that. So there'd be 12 weeks of paid leave for them. We want to get there. It's going to take some time. We have to do it gradually because we don't know if more people will take it. There's a substitute cost associated with that too. But our goal is to get them there. And we did discuss this with the unions during negotiations, and we're informed that they weren't interested in the state because we thought that might be a path forward. But they indicated that they were not interested with that. They wanted more of the just paid leave up front. So.
I'd speak to it. We're both on the negotiating team, and I have exactly the same answer that Carrie gave. So, in the spirit of time, I'll skip myself.
I see Sue.
Susan Wetzel, High Street, Hingham. I have been hearing since COVID the changes that have taken place in Hingham Public Schools. I educated my 3 children there. I've lived here 44 years. And so there are many things that have come across my radar that have been concerned to me about the Hingham Public Schools. And there's no end in sight from what I hear, and the stories are not good stories. But the one thing that I thought that maybe you could address for the people here is why we continue to have a declining enrollment in Hingham Public Schools. I have some statistics that were provided by Margaret Adams. She's superintendent of schools. And then I had another document that I think they both came from school committee meetings that I happened to get a copy of. But it looks like that we've had a tremendous decline in enrollment in the town, and yet we're building a new school, and yet we're $2 million over the override that we voted for last year. So frankly, I'm really puzzled. We have building a new school, we've declined significantly, and I went back and looked at several years of the enrollment, and we've had another decline. The number of children that are attending schools outside of Hingham is unbelievable. I got the 2022 report here with me today. Private schools all over the Boston area. It's just, homeschooling, private schooling, kids even going out of state. Our parochial schools are bursting at the seams. It seems to me that we, the ratepayers, taxpayers of the town of Hingham, somehow are getting a short deal. And I don't mind bringing that up because I am not afraid. There's so many people in this town that are terribly afraid. They're afraid to speak out, or they've been denied the right to speak. They've been cut off on Zoom meetings. And I'm just not afraid to ask what you have to say about the declining enrollment, about the terrible unhappiness of the parents.
Tim, why don't you?
Sure, absolutely. I think the declining enrollment really started during the COVID years, where there was really a drop in enrollment. A decline would not be an accurate description. And I think we've been working back up to leveling off since then. I think part of that is people went to private school during COVID and they're happy in private school and don't want to switch to come back. I think another part of it is declining numbers of children in town. But I think really what we need to do is, regardless of what the cause is, to figure out what the right size for the district is. And we need to look at the staffing that we have and make sure that it is appropriate, that we don't have redundancies in staff because of lower enrollment numbers. But when you're talking about sort of generalized, there are many, many specific reasons that people can be unhappy. So I don't really know how to speak to that on that level of generality. I don't know if you can be more specific about why you think parents are unhappy.
Why don't we let Carrie address perhaps the declining enrollment issue?
Yeah, I agree with what Tim said. There was a stark drop off during COVID, and I think some people they were happy with their new placements. It's been an issue probably nationwide and statewide with the decline in enrollment. I think the population's getting older too, and there are just fewer kids. So that's part of it. As far as the budget piece about being $2 million over the override, the school committee, the select board, and the advisory committee signed a memorandum of agreement as part of the override process to keep our budget within 3.5%, and we are honoring that. We're not. We're doing it. We are laying off some staff. It was 7.1 positions this year because of the declining enrollment. We're trying to make sure that we're using the money that we do have as efficiently as possible.
I think if I could just say one more thing. I think one point, you say there are numbers of homeschoolers. I think we have very few homeschoolers in Hingham. They all come to school. They come to the school committee to.
Yeah, they would have been part of that report.
They would have been part of the report. But I do not think we have out of control numbers of homeschoolers.
Okay, yeah, that should be in there.
Okay.
Hi, Libby Claypool, 7 Adams Court. I know I was on the advisory committee during the time when the COVID budgets were approved, and I mean, there was a significant increase in full-time equivalent teachers that were added. And of course, at the time, we know that once they're added, it's really hard to pull that back. So I think we had explored, could they be contract employees, which apparently the teachers union said that was not okay. They were not allowed to be. So when you say there's 7 or so teachers that are going to be laid off this year, is that really 7 of the incremental ones that were added during COVID? So in a way, we still have a net of an increase of teachers from pre-COVID.
So it's 7 positions that were laid off. So there are other. It's not just teachers.
Yeah.
And the positions that were added during COVID, there were some teachers, but it was mainly interventionists for the multi-tiered system of supports that Tim had mentioned. So that's a different group of people. And that is working really well. Like we've gotten reports throughout the year about they've been using data to track our elementary school and see the recovery, and where a lot of communities are still struggling with the academic recovery from COVID, Hingham kids are doing really well. And so it's working. That investment that we made as a town was a really good one. And so we don't want to cut that. So what we're looking at is the enrollment where it's going down tends to be at the high school and the middle school. So that's where we looked at. We're trying to when we have to make cuts, we want them to be smart, and not and impact the least number of kids. So I hope that helps.
And I know one other thing that I know was a phenomenon was that Hingham always, in every aspect of the municipal government and schools, wants to compare ourselves to these 20 benchmark communities, and everything's in relation to that. And so, there were some changes that were at the time. It was stated that it seemed as though one of the budget issues for the payroll was that in Hingham, teachers just don't leave. So you get the pay grades go up and up and up. So that ends up causing a sort of negative correlation with the number of teachers per student. So it ended up where, it's just the payroll goes up and up because they don't leave. Is that phenomenon still a thing?
Yeah.
No one's.
I mean, I wouldn't say that they refuse to leave. I would say they're waiting until they retire to leave. I mean, people would retire and age out of teaching. We're not trying to scare young teachers out of the district. But I do think that's an expense, and I think the teaching staff in Hingham schools is an relatively older teaching staff who are relatively at the higher end of the pay scale.
Yeah, the experience is valuable though.
Yeah.
It's not a.
And I just one quick thing. Oh, sorry.
Let's get one more in the back and then we can come back.
Hi, Johanna Seelan. Can you talk about the Spanish immersion program? I know they started it, or I thought they started it this year in Foster, and I wondered what's happening with it.
Do you want to take that?
Sure, it's been remarkably successful. I think twice as many
Tim, could you please repeat the question?
I'm sorry. She's asking about the Spanish immersion program. It's at Foster right now, and will be in. And I think they opened it up to parents. About twice as many parents wanted to be a part of the program than actually applied to be. Than were able to be let into the program. I think it's been very successful.
It sounds like it has.
Yeah.
It's a preschool program, and when we was thinking, the thought process was to eventually expand it up through. Similar, Milton has a French immersion program. There are places that have Chinese immersion. It's a great way to kind of give these skills to students. So I don't think there are any plans to expand it next year because the budget. We're staying within our 3.5.
Just from an I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
As from an academic viewpoint and teaching, and I'm a teacher, a special ed teacher. One of my certifications is in ESL, so I know teaching languages. And there's a window for teaching languages that if you can start kids on languages when they're young like that, there's much more success, much more fluency. I started speaking Spanish when I was in high school, and I will always speak Spanish with an accent. I will never, no matter how long I can go live in Spain, I will never people will always be able to recognize me as an American. If I started speaking Spanish when I was much significantly younger, that would not necessarily be the case.
Spanish immersion next year, or is it just pre-K?
Right now, it's just pre-K, but the goal is to try to expand it going forward in future years. But
I have a question, if you don't mind. So I for Foster.
Please identify yourself.
Barbara
At this point, we can all laugh at that.
Where do I live? 1605 Tuckers. Thank you. So my daughter went to Foster years ago, and it is now a massive school, as you know, in the back. So I guess my question is twofold. Have you considered if there's a declining population, do you need all that room? It's too late. I mean, it's built. But how are you going to move those students around if you need to? Would you take some pressure off the middle school, for example, or something like that? And then also, I'm just curious, have the elementary school kids still been attending school at Foster during this construction?
Yes.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it speaks to the Foster community that they've made it really successful. They worked with the PTOs. The principal's been phenomenal. So I think we're lucky with that. I think we haven't discussed about how we would do that in future years with declining enrollment. But I think we have looked at different uses of the space. And one idea that is going to happen next year is the expansion of the preschool program, which will bring some revenue into the town, but it will also make it attractive to typical peers to come in and bring us up. So there's a good ratio of kids with disabilities who we're required to provide education for, and their typical peers coming in. And the nice thing, I have two that went through the integrated preschool program. It's amazing. And one thing that's really nice about it, though, is that they follow the same routine as the kindergarten in town. So when they were done, there was a seamless transition, and that's great for kids with disabilities and without. Like, it's just nice to know the routine and come in on day one.
I'll just say, too, my daughter years ago, when kindergarten, then they had a readiness program the next year, and because of the way her birthday fell, and it was really helpful to get her ready for first grade. So.
Sure.
And I think one of the things that Hingham schools have lacked for a really long time is space, physical space. I think we really felt that during COVID when we could not open the schools with the distancing that was required because of the just lack of physical space in our buildings. I think one of the good outcomes of having more space in Foster is hearing from parents a lot that a lot of children who we need to pay to send out of district want to be educated in Hingham, in their home community, with their peers, with their friends, and really deserve that if they have a community of a cohort of peers in town. One of the largest group of people right now going out of district and sort of not attending school are for social emotional reasons. We're researching right now about using some of the space to form a therapeutic elementary program for Hingham students, to keep some of these kids in district, to stop paying for them to be out of district, because we all saw with the special ed out of district costs, they're huge. And really just knowing that these kids do have a right to go to school in their community if we can build a cohort and do it in a way that's cost effective.
Thank you.
So.
I have one question. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Libby. I'm sorry, I cut you off before. Did you have another one?
Just a quick one. Just a quick question on unfunded mandates. So do you have a dollar amount relative to the whole budget of what that is, and does it continue to grow? I mean, is it ever anything that the state would back off of any of those mandates?
We still live in Massachusetts, right? Okay.
You don't need a full minute to ask.
Yes. Yes, the unfunded mandates are there and growing, and we are responsible for them. I don't. It's hard to put a dollar amount to it because a lot of the lines get blurry around the outside, so it's hard to attribute exactly what goes to an unfunded mandate. But it's an issue. You're right. Unfunded mandates are a serious issue, especially in the state.
I have one question. What is the next big construction project for the Hingham schools?
The roof of the high school.
Yeah, that's probably.
I'll say
just
that.
The roof?
Just the roof.
Start at the roof and work our way down.
No, it's got good bones. So.
It's got good bones.
Yeah.
The building has a lot of life in it, but it needs a roof.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, John Borger, 53 Lafayette Avenue. I'm so happy to hear that you think that the investment in helping kids recover from COVID is paying off in Hingham, and that they are really bridging that gap. That is so encouraging. I'm concerned about another issue that affects the well-being of our kids, and that is smartphones and social media. And I'm sure you're familiar with the work of Jonathan Haidt, who recommends just say no until junior or senior. And he points out the problem of collective action, that unless there's a critical mass of parents in a town that all agree that they're going to adhere to this, it doesn't work. You can't really keep the phones out of the kids' hands. So I know you can't mandate, you don't want to get into mandating things in the school committee. That's not your role. It's not appropriate. But I'd be interested in your perspective on that problem, and relative to what you know about the sentiment among parents. How are you feeling about that?
Sure. I mean, I think I think if people want to know my views of social media, I put a piece in the Anchor last week. Go back and look at that. I'm not a big fan of social media. I've seen how destructive it's been for my kids, my own children. I have 2 children in Hingham Public Schools, both at the high school. I think it's been, as a teacher, I see it really destructive. Kids are you never get full attention from kids anymore, and it's very difficult. I think we need to make space for the school to pass policy. It's not school committee's really role to pass operational policies in the school, but I think the schools need to have space to have policies about phone use in schools, and certainly phone use in the classroom. I think it's a blessing in Hingham that Hingham High School has horrible reception sometimes. I don't think that's a problem we necessarily need to fix right away.
I agree. Social media is a huge problem. I think the things I hear on the other side of that is the safety concerns. I mean, you hear about school shootings, and a lot of parents are really concerned about their kids being able to contact them or the police. So that would be something to flesh out with that.
Flip phones.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Flip phones work,
Yeah.
They don't. they can't surf the net.
There are also is a number of students with disabilities that use the apps on the phones to access the curriculum. So that would be another thing to work through.
Yeah.
But I think this is a big concern from parents. I'm hearing that from parents. I attended an all-town PTO meeting recently, and that was all the PTO presidents were talking about that. And we're talking about and I think this is probably would be the most effective thing, more than a school committee policy, is if these parents came together and really worked collectively on this issue, and maybe I've heard of wait until 8th, so nobody gets, the community agrees, you don't get a cell phone until you're in 8th grade. Something like that, where they all come together and educate people and kind of as a community decide that we're not doing this.
Yeah,
So
and it sounds like from the PTO meeting, you're saying that that's beginning to happen.
they've definitely been discussing it, yeah, but having speakers come in and kind of educating parents as for what they can do, and kind of changing the culture a little bit around smartphones.
And I think the schools probably use social media too much to interact with students. I know I had to give both of my children their first Facebook account was because they needed it to be on a sports team. So I know my kids did not have Facebook until they were in Hingham's and the cross country team and the track team. So,
Well, with that, thank you all. It's 4:30. I want to wrap up. Thanks to the school
Thank you.
committee candidates.
Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Thanks to all the candidates for participating today and for their civic engagement. Active involvement in local government takes a lot of work, but it's one of the things, as Michael has often reminded us, that makes Hingham such a great place to live. Thanks to the audience for coming out today. In my script, it says for coming out on a beautiful spring day, but somehow.
It was at one point today.
It was like a minute out.
Especially noon, it was nice.
I know. I've been reminded of that as well. But I'd like to also thank Barbara McAlvin for really doing all the heavy lifting on organizing this, and for Laura Marwill for being our terrific timer. Thanks to the public library, thanks to Harbor Media. And just remember, town meeting is April 24th. The town elections are Saturday, April 27th. Everybody please vote. And that concludes our program this afternoon. Thanks very much.
Thank you.